People are always asking me, Sarah, why is there no one-stop shop, one magic bullet for parental controls? Just one place where I can control and monitor everything in my kids' digital world. I'm sorry to say, there is no one-stop shop. There is no magic bullet. And there's a reason why I don't think it would be technologically possible to create such a platform. And I will let you know all of the reasons why that is so. And as we're talking about why there isn't a magic bullet, the different places that you might not be realizing you might have a hole in your parental control strategy. So let's get right into today's episode. Let me set the stage for you. You have kids. Your kids have devices, or you have family managed devices, and you would like to set parental controls on said devices. They have access to a smart TV, they have access to a gaming system, a tablet, a phone, any other type of technology, maybe a VR headset. There are so many different types of technology that kids these days might have access to. And unfortunately, you are setting parental controls on the Switch, and then you have another app to set parental controls on their Android device, and you have another location to set parental controls on your entire network, and another place for the smart TV. And you just want to set one parental control in one location and have it work everywhere. That would be the dream. Unfortunately, that dream is probably never going to be a reality. And the reason is the technology is so vast and different. We'll get into like individual devices and the reasons for that. But the main problem is that you have so many different places to set parental controls, and maybe you haven't even thought of setting parental controls in some of these locations. So definitely watch through the end to make sure your parental control strategy is on point. So first, I'll explain what parental controls kind of can do. So parental controls, there's 3 different areas it can control, basically. There's monitoring, there's managing, and there's filtering. So those are kind of the 3 areas of parental control. So monitoring means that you are able to see everything that is going on within that app, within that device, within that messaging platform. So it's going to allow you to just see exactly what is happening. That would be monitoring. Management would be control. So controlling what apps can be installed, controlling what time frames the apps are available in, or what time frame the entire device is available in, or how long they're able to spend on that device. That would be management of the device instead of monitoring the device. The third area is filtering. So can I make sure they are not accessing inappropriate content? If they look at a Google page, what kind of content can they see on that Google page? Can I filter out that content? Or if they're watching a video in a streaming platform, Wi-Fi network, it is going to control a vast number of devices. So it can control the smart TV, it can control the Switch and the phone, etc. But the problem is it's only controlling internet access. So it can either allow or deny based on time frame, based on the type of website it is, or based on whether or not that So it can either allow or deny based on time frame, based on the type of website it is, or based on if that device itself is allowed to access the internet. What it can't do is control the device itself. So let's say I access a YouTube video or a TikTok video, right? And I download that TikTok video. Well, I don't need internet access to play that video. It is downloaded to my device. So when the internet access shuts off, then my device can still play that video. So it's not going to control whether or not that device can be used. It's only going to control whether or not that device can use the internet. So that's kind of the limitation on that. So if you try something on the network level, again, it's only going to be able to control the traffic going through that device. So the other issue with that is if they're on a different Wi-Fi or if they're on a data plan, it's not going to apply those same restrictions to the device when it is outside of that network. So then you can set controls on the cellular network. Say with Verizon, you can set it through the Verizon Family app. If they're restricted on the Verizon network, then what happens when they're at Starbucks or something like that, where they're connecting to a public Wi-Fi? So you can see again where the limitations would be if you have something that can just control the network. So then going down to the device level, say I have an Android device, I have a Nintendo Switch, I have an Xbox, and I have a smart TV. Well, the Nintendo runs on a different platform than the phone that's an Android phone or an iPhone. That's different than the smart TV platform. That's different than, you can see where we're going with this. So it is going to be difficult to set up like Android parental controls won't manage the Nintendo Switch because, again, they're going to be different platforms. And so if you set something up on the Android parental controls, then it's not going to translate to the smart TV and to the Switch and to the laptop and things like that. So it's only going to allow you to set those controls for that type of operating system. So let's say they have a tablet that is Android and a phone that is Android. Yes, the Google Family Link could control both of those devices, but it's not going to be able to control the Nintendo Switch. So you set parental controls on the Nintendo Switch. Again, different operating system to the smart TV. So it's not going to be able to control the smart TV. You can see where we're going on the device level. So, okay, let's say I have controls on the phone and I have controls on the Wi-Fi network. What about the apps themselves? So let's say I've allowed access to Instagram on the Google Family Link. I've allowed Instagram through my Wi-Fi. What can I do inside that platform? That's going to take the app controls because, again, Android has no control over what's happening inside the app. So the app has its own coding and its own programming. I can't set parental controls inside Instagram that will work on TikTok. And I can't set parental controls on TikTok that will work on Snapchat. I can only set up access to these platforms through my Wi-Fi, through Google Family Link, through the iPhone screen time, etc. So I'm not going to be able to do controls inside that app unless I set it inside the application. Again, if you kind of can see where this is going, the Wi-Fi doesn't have the ability to control Instagram's programming. Instagram doesn't have the ability to control the smart TV's programming. So there can't be one-stop solution that can get all of these different locations. So that's why we talk about basically layers of parental controls. So unfortunately, there's no magic bullet, there's no one-stop shop, but what you can do is go through that whole process, but in reverse. So if you're allowing access to Instagram, go ahead and set up the parental controls inside of Instagram. And then you can set up the parental controls on the device itself to limit their time on Instagram. Again, when you set up the controls inside the app, that's going to help you with the monitoring part. Let's say Instagram. If you set up the parental controls for Instagram, you can see who your child is communicating with. You can't see what they're saying, but you can use some other platforms in order to kind of get that information. So Bark parental controls, there is a link for Bark in the description, but that's going to help you get a lot of that content monitoring. And on an Android device, it's going to allow you to see what they're chatting about on Instagram, in YouTube, and all of the above. But on an iPhone, it's not going to allow you to monitor that content inside those apps. So in order to monitor content inside apps, your kid probably would have to have an Android device. Bark does work on an iPhone to monitor through text messages and things like that. But because of Apple's platform, it doesn't allow them. Again, we're talking different platforms. So Apple controls what happens on Apple devices. So we have a third-party monitoring tool called Bark. And Bark goes in to try and monitor these messages. But the operating system on the iPhone doesn't allow Bark to see that content. So what Bark has to do is run the monitoring on a backup of the phone. So the backup runs to the computer when they reconnect back to Wi-Fi, and then the Bark app will run that scan against that backup and then give you the notifications as to what's happening on the device. So that's really going to help you with the monitoring part. You'll likely have to have a third-party tool in order to do that monitoring of the content. For filtering, the best place to put filtering is on that network level. So if you go to the network, usually your Wi-Fi can have built-in parental controls. You can set up filtering through like OpenDNS and smart browsing. I do have a whole video about how you can set up DNS filtering, but to filter through that content, because all that content is going through the internet, that's going to be the best place for that filtering. Again, it's not going to allow you to filter from inside of Netflix, say. So I have Netflix, I'm allowing access to Netflix through the Wi-Fi, but inside of Netflix, Netflix is the only one that can control that monitoring and tell you what videos are being watched and things like that. So inside the app itself is going to be your best bet to get that monitoring and filtering. But other than that, you can rely on these other levels. So then the management, the best place you're going to be able to do the management is on the device itself. So through Google Family Link for Android, through family sharing on iOS devices, through Nintendo's app, through the PlayStation app, through Microsoft's app for different types of devices. So whatever the device itself, it usually will have some built-in parental controls, and you want to make sure to set those up for whatever device your child has access to. But now that we've covered all of our bases, we know where to go for the different types of filtering and monitoring and management. So if I set up a time limit on the device, then that's going to shut down that device. But if I set the time limit on the Wi-Fi, it's only going to shut off internet access to that device. So again, any downloaded videos or anything like that are still going to be able to be accessed. So you want to make sure that if it's a device specific thing that you want to shut down access to the device itself, you're going to have to set that on the device. If it's content filtering or monitoring, you want to set that up on the network level or in the app level. And so that is the different areas that you're going to need for setting up your parental controls. Unfortunately, no magic bullet, no one-stop shop. I doubt that will ever come into existence because of all these different technology. Maybe in the future when everything is Taco Bell, if you get that reference, leave me a comment. But in the future, maybe everything is the same platform and then it would work. But because we have so many different devices and platforms, you're going to have to set it up in various locations. So sorry for the bad news, and hopefully you will get everything set up to your family's standards, and we will see you in the next one.